is Ben Freer, and today I'm going to talk about adjustment of status through marriage to a U.S. citizen. Filing for adjustment of status is a popular move for spouses of U.S. citizens who are already in the United States. The basic filing process for adjustment of status looks like this. First of all, you have to be married and in the United States. You have to file a number of forms and supporting documentation. Then you attend an interview, and then if all goes well, you get a green card. Now, of course, this is an oversimplification, so let's spend some time talking about the requirements, the forms, and the supporting documentation that you would need. In order to qualify for adjustment of status, you must meet these primary requirements. You must have been inspected upon entry into the United States. For example, you must have spoken with a U.S. government official at the time that you entered. Number two, you cannot be on a visa that requires you to return to your home country. This is also referred to as the home residency requirement. Third, there must not be any disqualifying factors such as fraud, certain convictions, or inadequate financial support. And number four, you have to be able to prove that you're in a bona fide marriage. In other words, your relationship, your marriage is legitimate, and you're not just getting married in order to obtain immigration benefits. Now, in order to determine if you meet the requirements, it's important to first speak with a qualified immigration lawyer. And the good news is there are a lot of great ones out there. If you cannot afford an immigration lawyer, you can reach out to one of the stellar pro bono organizations out there that can help low-income applicants. These organizations can be found in most major cities. Okay, so let's say that you have no disqualifying factors and it looks like you're going to meet the basic requirements for adjustment of status. If that's the case, you can move on to the application process, which will sort of look like this. You will start to gather documentation and complete the required forms. The forms that you will typically file in an adjustment of status situation include the I-130, which is the petition for alien spouse, the I-130A, which is supplemental information for the spouse beneficiary, the I-485, which is your application to adjust status, the I-765, which is the application for work authorization, the I-131, which is the travel document application, the I-864, which is the financial support affidavit, and the I-693, which is the medical exam form. Now, I won't go into details on how to complete these various forms, but suffice it to say that they can get pretty tricky, so you are better off getting some help. However, if you decide to ignore this advice and do all this on your own, then I would recommend that you closely read the instructions at least 3 times. Read them very carefully, and by doing this, you will reduce your likelihood of making mistakes. Now, while you're working on the forms, you will also work on gathering the required and the supporting documents. The required documentation for each form can be found in the instructions. So again, read these carefully. But the supporting documentation is a little bit different. The supporting documentation includes the documents that you will use to make your case. In this context, in the adjustment of status context, most of the documentation will be used to show that the relationship between yourself and your spouse is legitimate and that you intend to spend your lives together as husband and wife. Now, these documents can contain a number of different items. So this list is by no means an exclusive list, but some of the things that we tend to see when you're trying to support the notion that you are in a bona fide relationship include joint bank statements, joint lease agreements, letters from family members and friends, photos that demonstrate trips taken together, everyday lives, special occasions. These can all go a long way in showing that your relationship and your marriage is legitimate. Now, once you have everything nicely organized, preferably with a great cover letter, you will write the checks for the filing fees. Now, these fees can change at any time, so again, read the instructions before you do anything. But at the time of creating this video, the fees are $12.25 for the adjustment of status application plus the biometrics fee, and $5.35 for the Form I-130 petition. For the other forms, there's no fee as long as you're filing everything together. So after you gather all the documents and send in the filing, this is what happens. You will typically get a receipt notice within 2 to 6 weeks unless your filing is missing some basic items or information. If anything is missing, you may receive a request for evidence that asks for that information, or your filing may be rejected. Now, rejection isn't as bad as the denial. If your case is rejected, you'll get the filing returned to you along with the filing fees. If your case is accepted, then you'll get a receipt notice, and shortly thereafter, you'll receive a notice for a biometrics appointment. Now, biometrics is just a fancy word for fingerprinting that they use for a background check. Now, in normal, non-pandemic times, you will typically see a notice for your biometrics appointment within a couple of months. Now, there are a lot of great things about filing for adjustment of status, but probably one of the best things about applying for adjustment of status, in addition to enabling you to stay with your spouse in the United States, is the fact that you can obtain work authorization while your green card application is pending. This means that you can get a social security card and you can start working, you can start earning money while you wait for an interview and ultimately a decision. Work authorization typically takes around 3 to 6 months, but unfortunately, at the present moment, it is taking much longer. Now, once you obtain your work authorization, you'll feel some sense of normalcy. You can pursue your career. In most cases, you can get a driver's license, and you can enjoy these benefits while you await your interview notice. Okay, so what happens at the interview? Before your I-130 and I-45 will be approved, you'll generally get a notice for an interview. And when you go to the interview, you'll take a copy of your complete filing, as well as all the other documents that are indicated on the notice. And when you and your spouse get into the interview room, the adjudicator will swear you to your answers and then go over some of the questions that are on the forms. Additionally, the adjudicator will ask you questions that are designed to determine if you have a legitimate marriage. If all goes well, you'll be informed of your approval, sometimes on the spot, but typically a little bit later. And then you should receive a green card within a couple of weeks after that decision is made. Now, from start to finish, this process of filing for adjustment of status through marriage to a US citizen typically takes around 10 to 12 months. But unfortunately, we're currently living in extraordinary times. And during these times, during our pandemic, it's very difficult to tell how long it's going to take the government to schedule interviews and issue ultimate decisions. Now, of course, this is all just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to cover about this topic, but I hope that this video was helpful in giving you a broad overview of this process of applying for adjustment of status through marriage to a US citizen. If you did enjoy this video, please like it or pass it along to someone who could benefit from it. Thank you for your time.